Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Clint Black is coming to the new Capital One Hall in Tysons, Virginia, with tickets going on sale at 10 a.m. today. I spoke with the country music icon about his prolific career from Killin' Time to When I Said I Do.
Hey, thanks so much, Mr. Black. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, how cool is it to play a brand new venue? Is it more exciting or more nerve-wracking? Like you're not sure how things are going to sound, you don't know the layout, which one is it?
I'm excited to just be playing now at this point, but new venues are exciting because you figure they really put a lot of work into it. You know, some of the older venues, you might have some wires running under the stage that make your guitar hum, your electric guitar pickups, things like that. All of the modern conveniences, you figure they're putting that stuff in there. So we get pretty excited about it. We've played at a few brand new ones over the years, and they're usually great.
Yeah, like you said, you're just glad to be playing anywhere right now. Have you basically been shut in for about a year? We have.
Yeah, lost my day job last March. And, I started pitched a TV show to Circle TV. I started coffee company, and then suddenly I'm back out on the road again, and now I have two other jobs. I got my cowboy coffee at clintblackcoffee.com.
Nice plug.
Very, very good, according to me. And
that's a no-brainer. We all drink black coffee, so now we can drink black coffee. It's perfect.
Black coffee.
Black coffee.
That's great. Yeah, I really just kind of I need to be productive. And so I set up this, DSLR camera in my studio, and then every day an Amazon truck delivered the cable I was one short of, to make it all work. And that went on for about 3 weeks until I ran out of cables I needed, and the Amazon truck stopped coming. and I just tried to keep busy. It was maddening for a while. And really sad for my industry. And a lot of people don't think about how far-reaching that is. If you go from people who play in nightclubs like I used to do to local symphonies and, all of the, the convention gigs that people play or weddings, all sorts of things, to the touring acts like myself and every other music genre, the Bear in the Big Blue House and Dora the Explorer on tour, everyone on ice, all of that, and all of the people who support all of that work, all of the bus drivers and truck drivers and the crew and the people that take the tickets. It was just frightening to think about just how far-reaching the devastation would be. So when we were able to get back out on the road a few weeks ago, we've always been grateful-minded people, but it took on a whole new level this time, getting back on the road. We always are glad to get back on the road, but not like now.
Well, yeah, this is going to be good just to be playing it all, I'm sure. And when you keep saying we, because everyone should know you're going to be performing with your wife, Lisa Hartman Black. How much of a blessing is it to be able to play with each other all these years later, decades later since your first duets? I mean, do you guys just sort of finish each other's sentences musically now?
Yeah, we really, she's such a pro. And people know her more from her acting, but she sang a lot, made some records, and she really has a great ear. She knows what's working and what's not working, and so I'm, but the touring thing is not her deal. So that's kind of new to her, and so it's got all these levels of excitement to it. And, we can finish each other's sentences, but there's also there's an exchange that happens on stage with us. We know each other so well after nearly 30 years of marriage. When we look each other in the eye on stage, I'm more at home up there, So my mind, is wandering to all kinds of thoughts, and I think she sees that in my eyes, all the things I'm thinking. And a lot of times it's just wow. Sometimes she won't let me see what she's going to wear, for a particular song when she comes on stage. And so I get to see it for the first time when the audience does. And, it's pretty spectacular for me, even after all these years.
You're up there trying not to gasp in the microphone. You're just playing it cool. I got to be cool here. Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to know how you got into country in general, because I know you're born in Jersey, but you moved to Texas really young. So you basically grew up in Texas. Did you have sort of, the idols as a kid? Was it the Johnny Cash's? And who were your idols as a kid?
Yeah, I had all of the typical country idols. And my family's from Texas on my dad's side, from Alabama on my mom's side, and she would just go up to be with her mom in Jersey. So really, I was I am the youngest. I was the last to be born up there. So once I was nearly a year old, we were back in Texas and never left Texas. So that's all I really knew. And the music that I grew up on there was all the country greats. Merle Haggard would be number one, Willie and Waylon, and Jerry Jeff Walker, all of this cosmic cowboy stuff coming out of Austin. But I also got really attached to Johnny and Edgar Winter, who came out of Beaumont, Texas, and, playing the blues and blues rock. And then we had a radio programmer, Bill Young, who was programming rock radio in Houston. I would later, looking back, understand what he did, which was he really influenced a region. He was a great programmer, and we were exposed to a lot of great rock and roll. So I have 3 older brothers, and they brought home the rock. So I was listening to Deep Purple and Zeppelin and Seeger and Steely Dan. I found things on my own and drifted toward the singer-songwriters like James Taylor, who I would put up there with Haggard as number 1 and 2 for me. Jimmy Buffett, Loggins and Messina, Croce, Fogelberg. All of that stuff had a big influence on me, but it was real obvious to me at one point that the direction country music was going fit with who I am. And but if you look at the classic rock in the 70s, there's a lot of that, like the Loggins and Messina, that would fit with where country music went. Bob Seger, Against the Wind, that could be a hit country song.
Oh, what a song! What a song!
In the 90s, yeah. So, but it was clear to me the direction rock and roll was going in the 80s. And the direction country was going. I belonged in country music, and started pursuing that. And the songs I wrote were country. The first song I demoed and presented to try to get a record deal was "Nobody's Home." The lights are on, but nobody's home. The Einstein quote. And so it was a pretty clear choice, and the more I went that direction, the more I belonged. But I brought along a lot of those other influences. If you listen to my third album, you won't hear Steely Dan in it, but the audiophile in me really was striving to make records that sounded that good. There are people in Nashville who were making records on par with that. Tony Brown and those George Strait records really were on that same level. If you listen to, for me, it's Can You Hear Every Instrument? Is anyone, hogging the song? Is it hurting your ears the more you turn it up, or does it get better? So that really drove me, and then the people around me like Travis Tritt, were bringing the Southern rock into it. Throughout the 90s, I could really feel it. I could feel that, we were traditional country, but I could feel those other influences.
Well, we're all glad you chose country as your path. And you mentioned Travis Tritt. I mean, when you signed with RCA, you guys the famous class of '89, Clint Black, Garth Brooks, Travis Tritt, and Alan Jackson. I mean, you're probably never gonna top that as a Mount Rushmore of '90s country. What was it like having these, I don't want to call them rivals, but you guys were pushing each other, man. Everybody's kept getting better and better.
Yeah, I know some of them were very competitive, and I didn't like competition in an art form, and so I was just never that way. I mean, if you put me on the golf course, I'll begrudgingly lose to you, but I'm trying to win.
Right.
When I played sports growing up, I was very competitive, but when it came to music, I was competing with myself and trying to grow and get better, and at the same time walking the tightrope between doing enough of what the record company was asking of me and hitting my mark on stage every night. I had challenging songs to sing, and I was doing 9 shows on, 1 day off, 8 cities on, 1 day off. One month I did 21 straight cities in a row without a day off. And all the while doing interviews, meeting sponsors and guests backstage. It was overwhelming. We need to grab you for a photo shoot for this magazine. So it was a challenging time. And the last thing I was thinking about was, what is everyone else doing and how can I beat them? The record company and the managers all worry about that stuff. But I was trying to survive vocally and be in shape for my show every night, which is every night's the World Series to me. And so it was not really a competition to me, although I know it was that way for the industry.
For sure. Well, you still, you're not viewing it as a competition, and I think that's smart. You're just you're just focusing on the art. But A Better Man still wins the CMA Single of the Year, and you get the Horizon Award. What was it like, sitting in that audience and basically CMA is tapping you and says, hey, A Better Man, which is a great song, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
Basically crowning you as the next big thing.
Well, I could see what was going on around me, so I'd be lying if I said I was really surprised at what was happening. They were telling me about my achievements. So nobody's debut single has gone #1 ever. Or, no, 5 #1 singles off a debut album has never happened. And there was a #1 and 2 single of the year. Hadn't happened since Hank Williams Sr. I'm hearing all this stuff, so I'm hoping, I'm hoping for that Horizon Award. I'm not shocked, but I am overwhelmed when it happens, and I get up there and try to keep it together and explain, what I'm feeling, and so it's kind of mixed, and I'm a humble enough guy, but I really think if anyone couldn't have seen the possibility that was going to happen to me with all the success the records were having. They'd be lying. And so it wasn't a shock, but it was a thrill. And, I learned enough over the years that no matter what's happening to you, you can't count on one thing or another. That's just the way life is and the way business is. But, that doesn't mean when it happens, you don't go, yeah, this makes sense. I've had a lot of success. So they gave me an award, but that didn't persist. I wasn't like a Nashville insider. I made my first records down in Texas, and I wrote all my own songs. Came under a lot of pressure to let them find me a hit from local songwriters, but I wrote so many songs. I always had about 3 albums worth of songs that I'd written to get ready for the next album. And so it didn't make sense to me to raise all these kids and send your neighbor to college. It's like, no, I'm sending my kid off to college. I want my kid to grow up on a record. The thrill of doing a recording session and hearing your song go from something you wrote on an acoustic guitar to having a full band with great engineering and all of that happening, it didn't make sense to me to not be doing that with my songs. And, you're working 10, 12, 14 hours a day in the studio. You got to have a heart for it. And I couldn't do it. There was a lot of pressure. I mean, the resentment from my record company for not playing that sort of game of letting everybody else onto my records, it grew to be a real point of contention with the record company. And so as the years went on, I was not favored by them, but we still had a lot of success. When my contract was up, I had just had a single that went number one and fell to number two and went back to number one. But the record company wasn't interested in continuing with me, and that sent a real clear message. All of the other major labels that I spoke to after that said they would really like to work with me, but not if I'm going to insist on writing my own songs. And I said, well, I wrote 22 number one hits, and sold 22 million records of songs, all that I wrote. Why would you want to go out to another songwriter? And they just didn't have an answer. They just said,
what year was this that you're talking about when they're saying they don't want you to write your stuff?
2001.
Okay.
So when I Said I Do had just been a big hit and been there with Steve Warner, had been a big hit, and but they wanted to go find me a song and have it produced for me the way they thought it should sound. So that's the way they ran their companies, and I didn't fit with that. So I just walked away and didn't do anything for a while. And finally I put out a record on my own record label, and that record label was a disaster. We had signed Little Big Town and broke them after 8 years of major labels trying to break them and couldn't. We did it, and then they had a loophole and took it and left the label, and went over to Capitol, and it crushed my label because we'd put all of our resources into breaking them. So that killed that company, and so I didn't do anything for a while. And then, I said, well, maybe I'll do a classic cover album of classic rock songs. And my manager goes, no, you need to write. And I said, I'm kind of, I'm really soured on the whole, making records thing and writing records, writing songs. And he said, well, you need to find your way back to that. So it took a long time, but I finally did. Got back into writing and recording, and now I'm loving it again because I don't have anyone beating me up over whether I wrote the song or not.
Well, you
Hashtag irony.
Hashtag irony. That's great. Your songwriting is incredible. So, you were correct to be pushing for that. I've noticed, God, there's so many songs of yours that it would take forever if we went through them all. But I've noticed, a theme of time in a lot of stuff. First, you were killing time. You're wasting time. Then you got no time to kill. You're busy. You keep no time. And then after a while, you're more reflective and you're like, you know what? I'm going to spend my time and use my time a little more wisely. Is that sort of an actual growth in your perspective as well? Yeah,
it has always been an issue. I grew up, watched the Vietnam War wind down. My brother, if it had kept going, would have been called up, my oldest brother. I lost family members to cancer. It was real clear to me at a young age that time is precious and promised to no one. And so I thought about it a lot. When I was 15, I didn't think I'd live to be 16. And then, okay, I'm 16, but I won't live to be 18. I just had this weird fatalistic view of what was going to happen. When I hit 25, I stopped worrying about that and realizing that, we can all be taken at any time, but I'm not going to sit around worrying about it. But it's still a great subject. You mentioned those songs. There's Buying Time. There's Ride on Time. There's Life Gets Away. And it just is like love. It's such a deep subject. Love, time, Christmas. These are all things that I've been able to revisit again and again and come up with even another way to approach it, and another way to sing about it. Love isn't something that we have, it's something that we do. I got that from, I think it was 7 Habits of Highly Successful People.
Nice.
Where the author suggested that most our relationships would be better if people treated love as a verb instead of a noun. That germinated in me for years, and then finally I came up with love isn't something that we have, it's something that we do. Got together with a great writer here, Skip Ewing, and we wrote the song. It just, subjects like that are so important and so universal, and something that we all reckon with, and so it's I will keep writing about it. Another time. Well, the latest song I wrote is a new duet with Lisa. It's called "Till the End of Time."
There you go.
And that was after a song "You Still Get to Me" that I wrote for us. And now we did The Masked Singer, and I thought, we should have a new duet after doing that show together. And so I started trying to write "Till the End of Time," and I thought, we're coming up on our 30th anniversary. What else is there to say? And for about 10 days, I had nothing. And then the opening line hit me. It was, I can tell you how the story never ends. And I knew what I was going to write at that point. So it just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Because, I'm 59, and I'll have just turned 60 when I play in Tysons. I'll have turned 60 the day before. And I'm still on stage. I think I'm better today than I was because I've kept at it and practiced and playing better guitar and singing better, all that stuff. But the way I look at time now at this age is different than even 5 years ago. And spend my time, really, as you watch your family tree, grow roots and lose branches, you think about that time that you have.
And you got to spend it like it's going out of style. I've always appreciated and been impressed by your visual storytelling. We work in radio, so I get it. You almost got to paint a picture with your words. So, for instance, something like Nothing But the Taillights, you can picture that person on the side of the road. And it's been done a lot since with, what was it, Broken Heartsville and Settle for a Slow Down. Other artists have done that theme, but you did it the best. Where did you come up with the line, "Back here with my thumb out in the wind"?
Oh, God, I don't know. Steve Warner and I wrote that late one night, and I don't know. I really, it's the best answer I could give you is I try to be like an actor, and I want to be empathetic, so that something that person in that situation would actually feel will materialize for me, and maybe I'll have something to say about it. So I was walking down that road in my mind and trying to hitch a ride, which I used to do as a kid, crazily. And so you have to be living in that moment to be lucky enough to come up with something to say that, all these years later, Jason says, you quote that line because it meant something to you, and why? Because it had to feel real, right? Right.
Well, you can just picture those taillights, those red lights just pulling away. You can visualize it. Same with
has anybody ever been dropped off and kicked out of a car somewhere? I have. And
you captured it.
I've had my uncle pull away, pretending to leave me on the side of the road in pitch dark, and I know what it looks like.
Oh, it just puts us right in your shoes for sure. And what about Like the Rain? There you go again. Another visual. You're using rain as there's been a bunch of songs about rain. There was even a song called Songs About Rain. But that when you come up with something like that, that's a perfect visual allegory for what we're talking about. That's visual storytelling perfection.
Thank you. Lisa had moved to L.A. when she was about 18 or 19 to pursue her career. I didn't leave Houston for Nashville until I was about 28, 29. Houston, we got plenty of rain. L.A., not so much. So she really loved it. Anytime it rained, and I would think, no, I'm not really liking this. But she would love it when it rained. And one night we were watching it pour down rain in Nashville, looking out the window. And I started thinking, what would the music for this sound like? And I played the introduction, the guitar part for Like the Rain. And then I came up with I Never Liked the Rain Until I Walked Through It With You. Every thundercloud that came was one more I might not get through, and so on and so on. I just came up with the beginnings of that, and then I put it away and said, my lead guitar player and I wrote that, finished it together. And that really was, the metaphor for obviously what love does, but it was also written started in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we would be here forever if we went through every song. I appreciate you doing those, but we tell ourselves when my shit comes in. There's so many good ones, but tell me about your duet, Circle Back, because we kind of mentioned it earlier. You did A Bad Goodbye, and then, of course, When I Said I Do, which there you go with your wife. That is a love as a verb, like you mentioned. That's you can't just say I do. You gotta act on it. So what's the key to a good duet, man? You've done it with multiple people, but the best one's with your wife for sure.
Thanks. I think what I did for that song is, A Bad Goodbye was a duet was an afterthought. I'd written a song. I was going to put it on my album. Winona and I were going to do a 100-city tour together, and I thought it would be great to have something to sing together each night. And I looked at that song and said, yeah, I can make that a duet. I pushed her into a broom closet at CMA Awards and played it for her, and she said, I'm in. So with my wife, I was writing the song in the kitchen, standing around the island for about 2 days. And I just started thinking, what would we sing to the world if everyone and God were watching? What would we say? Wow. And you have to bring reality into it, and the for better and worse through sickness and in health and all of that. So, it starts out with a dose of reality. But these times are troubled, and these times are good, and they're always going to be. These things never change, right?
Yeah.
And then it was a matter of just expressing our vow that when I said I do, I meant that I will till the end of all time. Be faithful and true, devoted to you. So a lot of people, who aren't successful in their marriages. I don't know when and where and how it goes wrong, but we were vowing that we wouldn't let it. And I think communication is the key to that. And so, in my mind, writing the song, this was the vow, this was the duty. It wasn't just, we're going to stick together because we're miserable. We're going to stick together and do all the work that makes us want to stick together, right? So, I've always felt really blessed that we have that we managed to do it, and that we can sing about it. And when people say, "What's your favorite song?" that's always the first one I think of because of what it says about what we've accomplished, and it is an accomplishment in any relationship, making it work for decades, whether it's siblings, parents, business partners, friends. Relationships are hard, and being a student of psychology, I always looked at human behavior and tried to understand what I did and why, and as a songwriter to be a student of it, to write about it. One of the best pieces of advice was from Roy Rogers when he found out we were getting married, and he said, "I'll give you one piece of advice: don't ever go to bed angry."
Roy Rogers told you that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's priceless. And I've read that kind of advice in very complicated ways in psychology books. Mm-hmm. But simply put, don't let something lie there and become a festering wound to your marriage the next day and the next, because you won't see it clearly looking back even a day. So get it off the table before you go to sleep.
Well, that's great advice. Yeah, I just got married 2 years ago, so my wife and I, we practice that too. We're not allowed to go to bed fighting. That's good advice, man. Who knew Roy Rogers told Clint Black, and now it's, now a new generation is using it.
Yeah, well, he was a sweet guy, a wise man, deserving of all the love that he received in his lifetime. Of course, Dale Evans, his wife, I don't know. She told me that as they were getting on in age, she was hoping he would die first. But, how dark is that? She said she was afraid if she went first, he might have her stuffed. Hey, there's a trigger joke for you. Looked like it was going to be a really dark tale about Roy's wife, didn't it?
Yeah, I like how you spun that around and ended with the horse.
She did tell me that joke, though. They were very funny.
Oh, that's great. That's so great. We just ate some more Rogers the other day, my friend. So, man, it's thanks for ending with the horse joke. Appreciate it. All right, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking marriage, so yeah, come see Clint Black with his wife, Lisa Hartman Black, at the Capitol.
By the way, I talked her into doing something from Knots Landing.
Oh, what? Are you allowed to tell us what it is?
No, I'm not. But I can tell you, I tried to get her to agree to act out some part of the TV show. I suggested the part where Alec Baldwin, falls from the billboard and dies, but he showed up and said he would kill all of the paparazzis if we did that. So there's another joke. It's not as good as the horse joke.
No, it's pretty darn good. Clint Black, the comedian, and the coffee entrepreneur.
I'm a sit-down comic.
Sit-down comic, yeah.
Yeah, less expectation. Very excited about the show. We have some really special things lined up for the show, and this is something that took a lot of work, Jason. I can tell you that it took several people convincing Lisa that this was really something that everybody wanted her to do, because she's really reluctant to be dragged into the spotlight. She'll do the movies and stuff, but just getting her to sing When I Said I Do with me was a real chore. And the fans let her know that they loved it, and so we were able to convince her to get on a bus and go out on tour.
Well, that's the best thing. Yeah, you guys don't have to be away from each other when you're on the road. You can travel together and see the country. That's great. Yeah. Again, everyone, it's February 5th, Capital One Hall. You'll be one of the first to play it. It's not even open. It opens in October, I think, so it'll be fresh for you.
Tickets on sale today.
Yeah, tickets on sale today, Friday, 10 a.m. Clint Black, this was great. Thanks so much for taking such a long time.
I enjoyed it, Jason. Thanks. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.